chat room, right? You see the chat? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Pleased to be joined by Trent Clark. Yeah, flash those ring, Mr. Clark. You're the best. All right.
Playoff baseball.
There you go. And Mark Meriday tonight, as he always is.
Good evening, everybody. Great to be here.
And George Eichhorn, guess what? He's not here tonight. You know why? Covering the Detroit Lions and the Seattle Seahawks at Ford Field. Look forward to having George back next Monday night. But, hey, you know what? George has been with me forever. Okay, so the fact that he covered Monday Night Football, that was his excuse. That was his explanation. And he definitely, to me, deserves the night off to cover that contest. All right, let's get to it. Major League Baseball playoffs are about to start. The title of the show is A.J. Hinch returns to Houston. Well, now you know where I'm going with this. Detroit Tigers at Houston Astros. My dad actually made an interesting comment that he only knew 5 people on the Tigers squad. You know, and I'm going to tell you this, okay? To only know 5 people on the squad is a credit to what A.J. Hinch and Scott Harris have done, knowing that they've had to pretty much do a makeover. So, Trent, what are your thoughts about this?
I think that's 5 more than I know. I mean, it's a crew that I have not followed. Obviously, we know a couple of their big players that they got, and it's interesting now when we think about some of the acquisitions, right? It's you know, you got a couple guys who've got a lot of playoff experience in those acquisitions, even though they're veteran players, although one's in his prime.
Right.
You know, we've got those are the guys I do know. These young kids that are just playing hard and having a ball. I don't know any of these kids, and I'm starting to watch the social media memes. It's a whole nother level. And and you saw the celebration, which was Friday night when they clinched to get in. And of course, they all are young and dumb, so they drank too much and looked like crap on Saturday versus the White Sox. And I think they might have, you know, I'm a little concerned that they might have shot a little toe off when they got the Houston Astros instead of the Baltimore Orioles.
Really? You think that?
I do.
Okay. That's what it's all about. All right, Mark, you either going to agree, disagree, or none of the above.
I don't think they want the Orioles. I don't think
they won the series.
I don't think they want a piece of the Orioles in postseason. Okay. No, I actually watch enough baseball to know some of those guys. I thought they made some great deals throughout the season, brought up some good guys. I'm pretty disappointed in Torkelson, though. Like, they should be hanging their hat on that dude. He should be a mainstay. He should be a clubhouse leader. He should be the next generation of Tigers that's around, kind of like Miggy was. And, you know, he's let them down, in my opinion. What's his name? Scheibel? Help me here, the pitcher. Yeah. He's amazing. Like, that's your Cy Young Award winner. I think he's incredible. I watched him pitch a couple of times, and I was in awe of him. The way he approaches the game, very professional in every aspect of it. But, I mean, like, his delivery, I can see why guys don't hit him.
So I'm going to ask you guys for protection a minute. Hi, Joshua Dorr. Of course, you know he's going to ask the normal, typical Barber, how many cuts today? Good evening, D-Lows. Good evening, Mr. Dorr. These guys are fun, actually. You know, they're figuring this chat room out really, really well. So here's the deal, okay? I was hoping the Tigers would draw the Astros. I really, really do. And here's the thing, okay? A.J. Hinch does return to Houston. They're not going to let any Tigers fans wear Verlander jerseys in there. So, because you know the Justin Verlander connection by now. However, I'm going to say one thing about that Verlander trade, okay? And that's this. Who they ended up getting was Jake Rogers, one of their catchers. And you know what was interesting about all that? I went to Chad Crunk, you know, when I was covering the Tigers a lot more often in spring training than I'm able to do now because I'm lined up with the Marlins. and Chad brought Jake over there, and it was unbelievable. I said, Chad, I saw him in Detroit. You really hit on this one. You really did. All right, we're going out there and putting some comments up there. Can you keep track? I don't know, or maybe I read them. But here's the thing, Mark. Spencer Torkelson had a very bad time for a period of time, and they needed to send him down to get his mind together. Everybody knows about getting a mind together. Mr. Clark, it should be you anyways. How sometimes players need to just go down, reset, come back, and obviously that move paid off handsomely. But the reality is I am looking forward to this series, and I'll bet deep down inside AJ Hinch is too. He never thought he'd ever get another job after the sign stealing scandal, but he did. And now this situation has come full circle that he will be returning to Houston. So it should be an interesting reception. It really did. So Trent, I'm going to ask you, give me your prediction on this series.
Well, I would say, listen, AJ's got all the motivation in the world to go down to Houston and get something done, and that's exciting. If you're going to go beat the Astros, 2 out of 3 is the way to go. Get them early, get a couple of hot pitchers. If you can shut bats down in the playoffs, which a lot of great pitchers can, you got a chance. And so I know when we were in there, obviously different series, we were always looking for those powerhouses like the Yankees in the 3 out of 5 series. You want to get them in. The longer you go and the more weapons they have, that doesn't play well into your program. And so, we thought the same thing in 2005 with the White Sox. White Sox had got in by winning 7 in a row, got hot in the playoffs, but they didn't look great as a lineup 1-9. What they did have that was so formidable was they kept throwing arms up there that just was shutting everybody down. And so, hey, listen, hot pitching, man. I think we hit like our 2 through 7 hit like 118 or something crazy in the 2 games in Anaheim. So, when someone comes into your ballpark and pitching can beat good hitting, this is the time to go get that 2 out of 3 series. So I do like that. My reference to the Orioles was the fact that Detroit held the lead in the season series with Baltimore. So I thought maybe that would be a little bit more advantageous. But Baltimore's playing really good baseball, Barb. So, I appreciate maybe not the time to get him. Oh, and P.S., Barb, you got a little comment here about people asking, are you cutting hair too? Where does the barber come from? Because they're wondering, how many cuts are you making a day?
The barber doesn't make too many cuts a day, but he cuts his every other day. Every once in a blue moon, I cut my son's hair. We keep it real.
Hey, Trent, can I tell you something, my brother?
Yeah.
You got more cotton picking moves than Barry Sanders when it comes to dodging my question about the prediction. Give me your prediction, would you, please?
I'm going to say Houston in 3.
Okay. That's fair enough.
I don't feel good about it, though.
Well, that's okay. At least you're being honest. That's okay.
Yeah.
In fact, I never thought I'd see myself put Trent Clark in the same sentence as Barry Sanders, but you know what?
I appreciate that. That means a lot to a Michigan kid, man. That's big props, Motor City. That's big props when you throw me in the same with Barry, man.
Well, you know what? All because of you, Barry Sanders got a hashtag sticking him in here with you. All right, let's go back to the chat room a little bit, and let's talk about the Marlins, okay? All right, Josh Adore, hang in there, buddy. We're just into the show. We're going to get to all your stuff. Marlins are a joke? Okay, no kidding. That's all I know about baseball. Well, that's better than a lot of people know anyways. What's up, lads, for George Boobrars? Well, what about my Marlins comment? Got it in there. At least I know Joshua's learning what the word patience is. Okay. And let's see. Got skipped like almost every great baseball play. I don't know about that. Hockey season's about to start. What's baseball? This is October, brother. This is when baseball shines. All right. Now, Barbara, you know what? We got to make sure Joshua George gets his due. Okay. What about the Barber, Lemieux, or Gretzky? All right. Go ahead. This is just for you.
You got to run with Gretzky just because he didn't have the injuries that Lemieux had. I'm a huge Lemieux fan. Met him a few times. Have a signed jersey behind me, as you can see. Lemieux is a big guy, very well put together, but he just had unfortunate injuries between having Hodgkin's disease, his back, which is always hurting. I mean, there were times where that guy couldn't lace up his skates. He'd have somebody lace him up. he'd still go out there and play and put 4 points on the score sheet. But you got to go with the great one. The only difference that could really make me change my mind is the fact that the great one had a hell of a cast of characters around him always, and he always had someone to protect him. And Marty McSorley. Lemieux never had that protection when he was in Pittsburgh ever. He had guys that would battle a little bit, but he didn't have what Gretzky had. Gretzky was just an amazing hockey player, and I think if Lemieux would have got his due and played every season he could have without having to retire, come back, we might be having a different conversation.
All right, now the conversation we're going to have is, what's your prediction in the series?
I'm going to ride with Detroit in an upset because I think Houston actually, I think they're kind of up and down. Like, I've seen them play pretty streaky this year, and I don't know where they are mentally going into this series. If they are too high on themselves, they easily could have it taken away from them. I mean, it's a short pitching rotation, and some of the strength can be in the bullpen now. If they get some timely hitting, it makes a huge difference. I just think that Detroit has a chance to knock them out, but I'm going to go 5 games in this.
Yeah, and you know what? Well, there's only
only 3, brother.
Oh, it's 3 now? My bad.
Well, for the wild card round market.
This series,
I keep saying 5.
You're a creature of you're a creature of habit. Don't feel too bad. You're okay.
Yeah.
I'm not throwing you under the bus. I'm just saying things do change. Okay, go ahead.
I am going to say in 3 games, though. I'm going to say it comes down to 3 games. And there would be nothing better than watching Houston get knocked off in Houston.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll defer to my prediction while we go through the chat rooms. That way I don't have 9 million heart attacks in the chat room. What about me? All right, never mind. Question for Trent. What's the spice jar behind you?
Oh, those are all cannabis blends? No, I'm just kidding. That's not true. All right. There's spices, man. Beans. I got chickpeas. I got lentils. I got split peas. Got a little quinoa. I got all sorts of good stuff, man. I'm a healthy guy, bro. Come on.
Okay, sounds good. All right, let's go back to Josh Adore. I met Lemieux a while back when the Penguins came to town. Nice guy. I'm sure he is.
Good dude.
All he did was save hockey in Pittsburgh. Red Wings win the cup, Trent. Okay, well, go ahead to you. All of a sudden.
Yeah, I think the Red Wings win the cup. It's just a matter of what year we're talking, right?
Right.
I do believe in the Red Wings winning the cup again. And by the way, claim to fame on that 0-2 ring right here. Yeah. 0-2 World Championships that we win in October. But, that year in 2002, the Red Wings won that year in June, right? Same manufacturer. Did the Angels, did the Red Wings. So, little fun-filled fact. I do believe in the Red Wings' future. I am bullish on it. I think it's coming. I think the matter of a cup, I don't think is this year. It's a matter of I think the Wings are going to compete for a cup again. I think it's going to be in a little bit of the mid-late 20s.
Okay, and nobody has to answer this. I'm only going to mention it. D-Lowe's is just putting his laughing cap on as a way to agitate Joshua Adore. George, Red Wings won't make the playoffs and Panthers will get Tarasenko back before the deadline. Ha, ha, ha. It's up there. I don't have to talk about it. Period. Okay, as far as the prediction, tarikskubal. Okay, this guy here probably will win the Cy Young. He ended up winning the Triple Crown. Not getting into that, but he's going to be a big part of this thing. And don't think in a million years that the Tigers don't want to win this one for AJ Hinch in the worst way. I'm going Detroit 2-1 in this series. I really am. All right. Now I'm going with, hey, listen, you know what? A short series, anything can happen.
I know. Don't go thinking with your heart, man. I'm a fan. I hope you're right.
Well, I don't know if I'm really thinking with my heart. This team was one of the hottest teams down the stretch, is what they were. And I'm not going to worry about how they played the last 2 games, against the White Sox. The main thing is they got in. And I'll tell you what I can say is the Miami Marlins are a perfect example of that. They've never won a division title in their franchise history and won their 2 championships via being the wild card team. So as far as I'm concerned, get in the tournament and then go from there. All right, go ahead, Trent.
And I think you're right. I lean on the fact Houston's been there so much. They know exactly how to flip that dial up, what October feels like. they turn that dial up from a 7 during the season, and they throw that thing right up to 9, 10s, and they can dial it up very quickly. They have a lot of tools. They're in their own park. It's a tough environment to go win. I am bullish on the way the Tigers are playing, but we're also saying like Houston's been in for a bit. They've got a chance to rest some players. They're going to come out fresh and hot. So I think it's going to be a really good series. I'm really excited about it, and I'm hopeful for 3 really good baseball games.
Well, let me tell you one thing: the Tigers are on house money. Nobody expects anything out of them anyway.
That's right,
No, not
and that's
at all.
dangerous.
What's that, Mark?
Oh, I said no, not at all.
Exactly.
Not at all.
That's my point.
They just back themselves into the playoffs by playing good baseball when it counts. It's like
Mark,
like
do you really
hockey and
think
football.
do you think they backed themselves into the playoffs? I'm not sure about that. They
Yeah.
played well. All right. Well, that's okay. I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Listen, most of the season they were just kind of blasé, okay, other than when their top guy pitched. After that, like, okay. But then we get in August and September, they're one of the hottest teams. I kind of call that backing your way in. It's like in any other sport. It's the team that gets hot at the end of the season that makes that big run. You know what I mean? In any other sport.
Well, I know what you mean. I mean, again, you say what you think, and I am fully supportive of anything you say. I think they won their way in the playoffs instead of backed their way in. But remember one thing, and then we'll move on to the next topic, which will be the other matchup. We'll get to those a little bit on that. But the reality is they won their way into the playoffs is what they ended up doing, getting hot when they did. But everybody has an interpretation. And again, I'll say they're on house money. This team, my dad even admitted he only knows 5 people on the team. Well, I guarantee you by the end of the 3 games that they win, he might be watching a lot more. I got what my dad doing great at the age of 83. And when I saw him today for dinner, he looked fantastic, by the way. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, backed their way in, won their way in. Who really knows? I mean,
and it really doesn't matter. They're in.
Yep,
at the end of the day.
Yeah, and Mark, by no means am I trying to, contradict totally what you're saying. I'm just trying to compare and contrast those and leave it at that. Okay, everybody, huh?
Trek, can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you. All right. Well, while Mark tries to figure it out, we'll move on here. How you doing over there,
you
Mark?
Guys hear me?
All right? Yeah, we can hear you.
I can't hear you anymore.
All right. Well, obviously he'll come back.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, that stuff does happen. So don't worry about it. Mark will probably back on a moment, but we'll wait for him to get it figured out, and then we'll talk about the other matchups that we have. Mark, are you able to pick us up now? So we'll work on that. So anyways, let's continue to move forward. In fact, you know what we're going to do? We'll do something a little bit unusual. We're going to go out there and go to a station break, and we'll get it all figured out. Go ahead, Candy.
You are listening to the South Florida Tribune YouTube station. We published a book last November. It is none other than Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, and the foreword was written by George Eichhorn. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There is a website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can read all of Scott's writings, George's writings, all kinds of the Marlins send us content. We have content from the Dolphins, the Jaguars, the Lions, MLB, NFL, you name it. You can come see it, especially local colleges down here in South Florida. There's also a link to buy Scott's books there, and there's also a link to our merchandise store. So if you like to listen to podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, you can hear us. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesday and Thursday nights, never know what we're going to be talking about on Sports Exchange and Fire Up. So you have to tune in to find out. Back to you, Scott.
Thank you, Candy. Well done. Glad to have Mark the barber back on, right, Mark?
Yeah, I don't know what happened, fellas.
It doesn't matter. It's called technical difficulties. But you know the best thing about this business? We have station breaks and the worst thing on the planet. So don't worry about it. So, but regardless,
And
what I was telling.
yes, I have to acknowledge that in the chat, Trent wrote a book too. Yes, he did.
Yeah,
Right behind him.
There you go. Right behind him. He'll have an opportunity to promote it in a little while, anyways. So with that said, yeah, as I was telling you, Mark, before you had some technical things, it doesn't matter how we interpret it, back in or won their way in. Fact of the matter is they are in, and now they're one of 10 teams that can actually have a chance to compete for the World Series championship. All right, let's go. Let's move on to the other matchups. We don't need a long story on all of them. We'll just mainly go to predictions, okay? Because we have a lot of material I want to get to. Kansas City Royals at Baltimore. Who do you have, Trent?
Orioles going to be too much.
Okay. All right. New York Mets at Milwaukee Brewers.
Oh, stay with me. Yeah, I am Brew Crew, man. They are poised and ready, man.
Okay. Atlanta Braves at San Diego Padres.
This is a tough one for me, man. I'm really vexed by this. I mean, I want to be a Padre believer, but kind of what Barb's alluded to earlier. I've seen these guys be really like non-stoppable, and then they've looked like just trash. I'm wondering which team's going to show up. I'm wondering if they got enough pitching. I think without Acuna in that lineup, I think they'd get by the Braves in this first round.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, Mark, you know the game, so same again. Kansas City at Baltimore.
I'm going to ride with the Orioles.
Okay. New York Mets and Milwaukee.
Oh, I got to go with Milwaukee there too.
Okay. Atlanta Braves at San Diego Padres.
Yeah, I agree with everything Trent said. Without Acuna, I think that's a tough win. I just think that San Diego is due. They're due. They've been working very hard at putting a team together that is going to win one, and I think they're due. It's time.
Okay. All right, I'll give you mine. Kansas City at Baltimore. You know what? I'll go with Baltimore. New York Mets and Milwaukee. My wife is not going to like what I have to say here, but the reality of the situation is I'm going to go for the upset with the New York Mets. I'll deal with it later. But the bottom line is the Mets had to play some very tough baseball to get in the tournament. And the fact that Christian Yelich isn't going to be there when they need him here. I know they've been able to get by without him, and I credit Pat Murphy for the job he's done. There's no question in my mind he deserves to win the National League Manager of the Year, hands down. Pat Murphy used to play at Florida Atlantic University. So, you know what? I don't know why. I'm going to go with the Mets. And as far as Atlanta, San Diego, I got to go with the Padres. I really do. This team here, once again, I've been preaching them all year that they were going to do well, and now they got in the tournament. I'm not going to give you my World Series prediction yet. We'll see how it goes. So there you have it. Baltimore, the Mets, and the Padres. All right. On this date in 1988, World Series champion submarine-style pitcher DanGQuisenberry passed away from a brain tumor at the age of 45. So, Trent, some recollections of DanGQuisenberry.
Man, by the way, just watching that guy through junior high, I mean, I was an absolute baseball fan. Obviously, we're following the Quiz very closely back. They were division rivals of the Tigers back in the 84. Bless you, boys. Goergebrett. I mean, they just had tons of guys. halmcrae. They were a good ball club. And the Quiz was fun to watch because he was so funky, right? Coming so low on the throw. And just absolutely filthy in the playoffs. Like, this was a guy you could actually count on come in and just be incredible. What tragic that, a guy loses any person, losing their life that young, 45, just a young man. But what a fabulous, career, and a memorable guy. Always looked like he was just enjoying the heck out of the sport. So, sad that, and 1988, man, I graduated from high school that year. That was the year they won the world championship. Yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, another passing, a different sport, doesn't matter. Today, the NBA lost another great legend. Dikembemutombo died of brain cancer at the age of 58. Yeah.
Wow.
Trent's given the signal. Some quick
man. Yeah, not today. That's what, not today, Dikembe. I don't want to hear that today. I think he was an absolute icon for the whole continent of Africa. One of the early players into the league, such an influence, constant smile on the guy's face, other than when he was rejecting people. Played the game hard, played the game right. Just felt like he enjoyed the heck out of it. And then, when he left, he was a diplomat for the game for the last 20 years of his life. So like I don't know if there's a greater soul that ever gave to his profession like Dikembemutombo. So NBA lost a real special one, and the world lost a special one today.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to put him on this show, because you know what? The one thing that Dikembemutombo did, which a lot of players don't do, play defense and block shots. Those are a rare breed. With that said, Mark, you know what we're talking about?
I do know what you're talking about. Quisenberry, I think he had a pretty unique delivery, if I remember correctly, from back in the day. He had himself a pretty cool mustache thing going on, if I remember correctly. I mean, he was another great St. Louis pitcher. Is the way I saw him. Just another great St. Louis pitcher. You can add him to the docket of those guys, and they always seem to churn people like him out over and over again. But he was a quintessential professional. If he can stick out in my mind now, after playing in the 70s, 80s, whatever it was, he was pretty good.
And Dikembe?
I'll always attach Dikembemutombo with Larry Johnson. They came out the same year. In fact, I collect sports cards. In that year, Upper Deck, I believe, released their first basketball set with those two guys in it. And those were the two hottest cards you could get. You're right, Trent. His little finger wave, you're not doing it on me, not today. He always had a smile on his face, always was a positive guy on the court. That's when basketball in the NBA was basketball, to be honest with you. I love those guys. I love that era of basketball. And I was kind of sad when I heard that. I mean, I was kind of like, wow. And he's the same age as me, which made me even more like, whoa. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, well, here's where I'm going with it. DanGQuisenberry, we all know what an incredible submarine pitcher he was. It was really tragic. And I remember I ended up bringing on Buddy Biancalana, and I did a one-on-one interview. You can find that on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. And we talked about that championship team back then. But the one thing we can't lose about that championship team, or forget it, Dickhowser was a manager of that team. And you know what? When he could keep his job after winning 100 games with the New York Yankees, it was one and done. The Kansas City Royals were so smart that they ended up reeling him in. And as I understand, I believe his number's retired in Kansas City, and he's in the Royals Hall of Fame. So I don't want to ever forget Dickhowser while I connect him with DanGQuisenberry, because Dickhowser is just unbelievable. And I think the folks in Kansas City who are watching this show tonight will appreciate the reference for both. By the way, D. Lozo, Kuna Matata. I do also want to go back on the subject Joshua Dorr brought up about Gretzky and Lemieux. Here's the thing I'm going to say, and I'm sure a lot of people wonder about it. I don't think Gretzky and Lemieux would nearly have the numbers that they have if they had to play in the original six era. No way. They have good numbers, but I don't think they're even touch record status. With that said, let me stay on point. Dikembemutombo played defense, rebounded, block shots. And yes, he was a great humanitarian around the world, and he definitely deserves his props for making the game more international in Africa. So, we lost Quisenberry a while back, but why didn't I bring them both at the same time? You're talking about brain, two individuals who died of brain cancer tumors, and it's just unfortunate. It really, really is. So, rest in peace, Dikembe, DanGQuisenberry. You'll never be forgotten, as well as Dickhowser. Okay, let's talk about something which was an amazing thing and that's this. Luisarraez has locked up his third consecutive league batting title, doing it with 3 different teams. Get that. With Minnesota in 2022, he hit 316. With Miami, the Marlins. Yes, we're talking about the Marlins, okay? 354. Well, what a great reinforcement when you get traded in May. But then again, they did him a favor. All he is in the playoffs. Because with San Diego, he hit 314. So, all right, Trent, some thoughts about what luisarraez has done.
Well, first of all, I mean, what a feat! 3 consecutive batting titles. I think a little bit, no knock on Luis. Like, God bless him, man. Like, this is awesome. I have 2 probably significant challenges with this. One is 316 and 314 won a batting title. I think that's preposterous. I mean, I just don't recall players. I mean, I watched. Sean Casey, flirted. He hit over 400 in the Arizona Fall League. In his first year in the league, he hit over 300. I mean, you had guys in that era that hit pretty well. I just think it's a pretty low number for a battle title. A lot of respect for the 354 down at Miami in between in that sandwich year. The other concern I have, guys, is, man, this guy's the best hitter in the league. Why is he moving teams? When I see highly talented players that move teams, and I'm not saying this about Luis in any way, the typical response at greater than 50% is one of 2 things, right? It's going to be a big club is going to get them for a trade to make a playoff run, or teams are getting rid of that player because there's a clubhouse issue. Because there's been a lot of talented players that have gone on the trading block and surprised people before. This is a 3-year consecutive hitting champ. I mean, it shocks me that he'd move teams like this.
Well, you know what? Before I turn over to Mark, let me make sure I answer where you're going. Number one, when he got traded to Miami, Minnesota needed pitching, Trent, and they ended up getting Pablo Lopez, who's still with the team. So that worked out well for the Twins. It really, really worked out well. I find that, at least for 1 year, a win-win situation for both teams. So let's face it, Pablo actually signed an extension to stay with the Twins. They needed pitching. As far as Miami, well, it was a fire sale. That's what you have. Yep. So I don't know how you really, I'm not disrespecting what you're saying, but I'm just trying to give you information about why he was traded twice, and there were totally different reasons what they were. Now, I will add this. It was a joy to watch this guy go out there and play for Miami, because there was a point where we thought he was neighboring 375 to 400 the way he hits. He's an unbelievable hitter, and he doesn't strike out, which everybody else on the planet does.
Yep. And I appreciate you giving that clarity, because that makes perfect sense. That lines up very well. And I also appreciate the Latin players. Typically, even though he's got these numbers, like it's a challenge for Latin players to go into the North. Boston, New York, Cleveland, Detroit, the Chicagos, Minnesota, Colorado. Like, that's not home country weather, man. You're playing a solid 2 months of the season in some pretty cold conditions. And as we know as hitters, it's harder to hit in the cold. And so that Miami 354 doesn't surprise me much. And the San Diego number, I'm excited about watching this guy in the playoffs. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too. All right. Let's bring on Mark the Barber. Are you able to comment on this? I know you're on mute right now, so why don't we see whether or not we can get that figured out. All right, Mark, if you're on mute.
We lost the Barber.
That's okay. But anyways, so let's talk about this a little bit here. Yeah, the clarity is hello, Ralph. Good to have you on there as well. Ralph Williams is a part of Fire Up. All right, back to the Barber. All right, here we go. Mark the Barber. We don't have to ask you the haircut question. You already answered it 9 million times, but you can answer the question about luisarraez. What are your thoughts about the fact he got 3 titles?
Well, I think that's an amazing feat, especially in today's baseball. Like Trent was saying, we're not used to guys hitting 300 and winning batting titles. I mean, that was the benchmark back in the day. I don't know when 250 became the benchmark, but that's where they're at with baseball. And I really don't like that. 1 out of every 4 bats is supposed to be productive. It's turned into this power hitters game. So I give the guy a lot of credit for working on his craft and just putting the ball in play and earning a batting title, whether it's 315, 316, or 350. You know, I mean, if you look at the top 10 guys, you start really tailing off by the time you get to number 10 in baseball anymore. And I think for him to be able to do that and do it consistently, it just goes to show you that he's a professional hitter. I was really surprised that the Marlins were willing to move on from him, though. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I would think he would be somebody that they would build around as well. And they, you know,
They don't do business that way, Mr. Meraday out in Miami. They were determined to go out there and rebuild, and that's what they're doing. They started with the Reyes, and then all of a sudden the season went south. So
yeah.
And next week we're going to talk about the departure of Skip Schumacher. I want to see what other managerial vacancies come before I bring that. Tonight it would have been premature. One thing that everybody should know is that luisarraez hit the first cycle in Marlins history last year. And not only that, Xavier Edwards, we were in Milwaukee. He ended up hitting the second one in Marlins history. And I was joking around with Skip Schumacher and a media availability. And it was funny. I said, you know, the last time I saw you, Skip, Xavier Edwards hit for the cycle. And you know what he says? He says to me, I'm glad you're back. And what did he do that night? He got a base 3 times. So Xavier Edwards is a guy to watch out. So, Mark, it wasn't so much about the fact that they let him go in May. Reality is the Marlins had already had rebuilt already, and they had already gotten off to a horrid start. So you might as well start dismantling in May, and everybody saw how everything unraveled as the year went on, and that's really what it is. So Joshua George says, I'm covering the Panthers right now. Okay, if you say so. And the next one we'll wait when we get to that topic, Joshua Dorr, but that's definitely on the agenda. Okay. All right, so we'll go on to our next topic. Despite the Minnesota Twins' late season collapse, Roccobaldelli will return as Twins manager in 2025. I'm going to ask you, Trent, really quickly, is this a good move by the Twins to bring back Rocco?
Yeah, I mean, obviously hard to say. I mean, the collapse, that's a wait and see kind of thing. I mean, obviously Roccobaldelli has done some things endearing fans. Minnesota had a good year on attendance, had a good season, right in the mix the whole time. I haven't studied exactly what happened in the collapse, if there's injuries, if, you know, some things went down the stretch there, but you know, it's disappointing for the Twins fans. I think they really saw their team having a really strong season this year. My guess is that obviously he's got the respect of the front office. He's got the respect of the clubhouse. Rocco was a really good ball player that I think his career ended a little earlier than it should have due to some issues. And so, you know, I think he's the right guy. You know, obviously time will tell, right, Motor City, that
yeah.
Will he be the guy, in fact, in the future to get it right? And can they come back from and build on what they learned this year? Because, you know, the thing about it is, man, when you get 100 wins, like, you're doing a lot of things right. And so, you know, you got to close that. You got to learn. And historically, Minnesota's young, right? They don't keep long-term players. They got a good development program. And so, you know, when you deal with inexperience, you know, you watch kids burn out and fade at the end of the season. And I don't know if that's what happened, but I'd love to know a little bit more. If the Minnesota fans want to chime in their ideas on the comments, please do that. Love to hear and debate that a little bit. But from what I understand from Rocco and knowing him just a little bit from his days of playing, you know, stand-up, straight shooter guy who seems to have the respect of others around him. So I think I like the idea that, like, hey, let's stay with a guy who's really helped us build the program, and they see him as the future, and I think that's good.
Well, you know what, Trent? You made that reference to me, and I'll tell you what, great minds think alike on everything you said, but I'm going to add a little something to it. Number one, if Roccobaldelli gets let go, I can tell you right now the phone would be ringing off the hook to get this guy back. And number two, he does deserve an opportunity to get this collapse right next year, because you know what? He's put in a lot of good work for the Twins. So everything you said, plus those 2 comments. To the chat room real quick. Fernando Holiday Vargas is on. Glad to have you back on here, Fernando. And here's the deal. Just to recap, we gave our predictions. Trent and the Barber went with Milwaukee, and I took the unpopular pick in my house by going with the Mets. So I don't know why. It was just a hunch there that the Mets.
You like the sofa? What was it? You like the sofa? Is that what you were thinking?
Well, I wouldn't say that because we turned that sofa into it's actually a sleepaway bed there. But the reality is, if I get sent there, then she has to put the sleep machine out there with her too. So, we have bigger things. Yeah, she has to do that. And not only that, I'm talking about a woman who, by the way, is a Packers and I'm a Lions guy. So I think we've had this nice, friendly rivalry for a while. And, it's just a hunch. If I'm wrong, then her team moves on. I mean, regardless, I want to take the opposing view, and one of us is going to get it right when we have bragging rights next week. So Torrey Hunter was the last big farm player I believe from the Twins. I think he's right on point there as well.
No.
I don't know. So I don't know, Fernando. What are you talking about?
That's way off point, man. Who was the long-time catcher? Joe Mauer. What about that guy?
All right, Fernando. We gotta. Okay, somebody else goes out there and has a differing opinion, so we'll kind of leave it at that.
Torrey was a good ball player, though, for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He's not wrong about Torrey Hunter being a great talent, and big, but I would say Joe Mauer would be a guy that you'd probably say he did fine.
Fair enough. All right, Mark.
My input on Baldelli, well, I think he's a solid guy there. He doesn't have 2 100-loss seasons on his record. He doesn't have big losing streaks on his record.
Right.
He's produced some good players, and he's got the clubhouse still. And I think the biggest part of that is having the clubhouse still. You can have your clubhouse and still have some bad luck throughout the course of the season and end up losing. And I think they play hard for him, and you don't want to get rid of a guy like that they still play hard for. You're just going to cause more dissension in that locker room. And you got to start, in my opinion, you got to start from ground zero if you're going to get rid of a guy like that, or any manager. You're looking to just start at ground zero again. And I don't know why they would even entertain doing that. I agree with you, Scott. They'll be knocking doors. Doors will be they'll be knocking for him. Bring him in somewhere that they like a guy who has his makeup to be a manager.
Well, you guys both hit bullseyes on the subject, so it is what it is, and I'll leave it at that. Final topic of the night is really, actually, we just heard about it a little bit. Let's put it up on the screen. Joshua Dorr, okay, rest in peace, Pete Rose. You heard it there. That's Joshua Dorr, rest in peace, the Pete Rose, as he died at the age of 83. We'll also be talking about this on the Sports Exchange on Wednesday night with an entirely different panel. It's that big. But he's the all-time hits leader at 4,256. I guess the biggest question here now that a lot of people are going to wonder about Trent is he going to get in the Hall of Fame now that he passed away?
It's a great question, man. I hope so. I hope that Pete Rose, given the time, I mean, I appreciate, it's funny, right? We have gambling on baseball, and now ESPN has their own betting account. I mean, everything is gambling on baseball now. It's a sign of the time. That does not make Pete Rose right for what he did. Man, I've got a real affinity for this guy, not as a person necessarily, but as a player. I modeled my game after this guy. Man, I grew up a small guy, and he was a guy who hit base hits, played hard. And, man, that was my mentality, man. I got my mentality from the game, from playing football and watching Pete Rose. And I combined those two, and I was never going to be an easy out. I was always happy to take somebody out at second base. And if a catcher ever got in the way, that was a guaranteed clip on his left shoulder. I was going so hard into that left shoulder to pull that glove out. Anytime anyone got near the plate, happy to drop a shoulder no matter how much that gear. Force is speed times mass. And I was a little bowling ball like Pete Rose. Watch out, catchers, man. Pete taught me how. And get in the way and find out. That was part of the game. And, you hate to see a guy like Ray Fosse get hurt, in the All-Star game, with Pete playing hard. But, this is the game. You play hard, come and find out. This is how it works. And so I just have a lot of respect for the way Pete played the game. I got to see him when I was 10 years old play on the Big Red Machine. And I mean, worth the price of admission, man. 3 for 4 that night, base hits through the middle, just a tough guy. I mean, if there's an iconic picture of Pete Rose, 2 of them come into my hand as he rounds first base and putting his hand back on his helmet so his helmet stays on. And that dive into third for any triple where he's 4 feet off the ground. I mean, come on, man. This guy's incredible. It's a sad day for baseball and the loss of a guy like Pete Rose for the game.
I'm going to try to get Candy Ebling to do for next week's show, since this came up on us at the last minute, is ever find a picture of me interviewing Ray Fosse, because I talked to him about that same question. So it's unreal. And of course, Ray Fosse left us as well. But the reality of the situation is do I think Pete will get in? I want to believe he will, but the baseball world isn't so forgiving. Remember one thing, Barry Bonds isn't in there. I don't think he's going to get in there. And there's a lot of other players that are big name players that may never see Cooperstown, at least with a plaque. And I don't know. I just have a weird feeling he's not going to get in there. Your all-time home run leader, and I'm sure there's Sammy Sosa, Mark McGuire. To me, are they marginal? They're never going to get in. So baseball is not afraid to leave bigger names out. And I have a feeling that unless this takes an immediate turn a different way, guess what?
Oh.
Put it up there now. Look at that. Unbelievable. Forget about next week. Candy sees me interviewing Ray Fosse over at Oakland A spring training out at, was it Ho-Ho-Cam Park, I think?
Ho-Ho-Cam, yeah.
Yeah, over in Mesa. Thank you, Candy. Well done. Yeah, so that's me interviewing Ray Fosse. But yeah, Pete Rose is a great player to watch. He had all those, hits, and he had the hitting streak. And the way he played the ball, who in their right mind would modern him? But I want to take away from Mark the Barber. What do you think about Pete Rose?
I was kind of disturbed by it, to be honest with you. I kind of felt like you did, Trent. Watching that guy on This Week in Baseball, which was one of my all-time favorite shows.
Yeah.
Watching him, it's not like baseball is today, guys, where you can subscribe and watch every team as much as you want. Back in the day, you only got glimpses of guys like Pete Rose. You heard about everything he did. If he played your team, you heard about him on the radio during that time. You might have gotten lucky and watched him on TV, but I just felt as a kid, I hated him because I was a Pirate fan. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
But I emulated him. Everything he did. As soon as I was allowed to dive into a base, I was trying to do what he did. Calling him Charlie Hustle was just the tip of the iceberg for that guy. I really have a problem with baseball. I know what he did. I get it, but there's a lot of other scoundrels out there that they let in. And I do hope that they let him in posthumously. I thought the world of him as a player. And that's really what we should be basing this on, as a player.
Yeah, but I think part of the issue with Pete Rose is the fact that he denied it for so many years, then lied. People don't like to be lied to.
Yeah.
They really don't like to be lied to. I mean, we certainly know his stats merit it. And then betting on his own team, you don't do that either. I mean, and those are two things. And they have that memo in the locker room that you're not allowed to bet on baseball. He knew it and did it anyways, and then denied it. And every time they were thinking about doing them, what do? He goes right down the street to have another, what was it, an autograph session or his book or whatever. You cannot show up Major League Baseball. And that's why Bud Selig and Rob Manfred, as much as they probably wanted to cut him some slack, he kept making mistakes. You cannot do that. And when you got the writers controlling your destiny and the Veterans Committee, they're going to do it. I mean, do you really think that these younger voters are going to really allow him in? How many of them really know or watch this guy play? I don't know. And I'm not downplaying the significance of the younger voters, but a lot of the ones that saw him play in his prime, you would have thought, if it weren't for this situation, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, no matter what, without this extracurricular activity. It didn't hurt that. It didn't help his case when Bart Giamatti went out there and banned him, that it was a couple months later that the stress probably wore Giamatti up to the point where he suffered a fatal heart attack. I don't know how much that factored into it, but it's being talked about as well. So there are a lot of things working against Pete, but yet we all know he belongs in there. The question is, Mark and Trent, posthumously, does everybody else think? I guess time will tell, but we certainly wanted to mention him tonight because when we talk about the Major League Baseball postseason, Pete Rose was a fixture in the postseason and won a couple, I think 3 world championships, wasn't it? I think 1 with the Phillies and 2 with the Reds, if I remember right. I know if he was a part of the Big Red Machine and the veterans in Philadelphia, not talking about Veterans Stadium, but that group that they had out there. So, rest in peace, Pete Rose, like Joshua Dorr said, but reality is time will tell on this one. Great show tonight, by the way, Trent. And Mark, I think your effort was, as usual, great. Some other announcements we're going to make real quickly. There will be a new hockey show appearing on the network. It'll be on the Sports Exchange in about 4 or 5 weeks. I will announce right now that Mark the Barber and George Eichhorn will be on. Trent, you always have an open invitation if you want to talk about hockey as well. And Fernando Vargas says there's a great restaurant here in West Palm Beach. I don't know if it's named after Rose. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. So that's a new announcement. We're probably launch it in about 4 or 5 weeks. So there's no problem there. So Trent, you have an open invitation anywhere. Mark, for that matter, so do you. You come on, depending what your availability is. So that's meanwhile, George Eichhorn is in Detroit. Once again, he'll be back with us next week. So with that said, Trent, why don't you go ahead and let everybody know how they can buy your book and anything you want to talk about in terms of promoting your podcast. The floor is yours, Trent.
Yeah, thank you, Trent Clark. I appreciate it. Podcast Winners Find a Way. That is a top 2% downloaded podcast here and in all your channels. You can find it everywhere. We have some great 1%ers talking about the challenges that took them to the top levels. And it was certainly contracted by Wiley Publishing last year to write this book, Leading Winning Teams. And love it. How teamwork, motivation, and strategy achieve big league success. This has been just a fabulous works for me. Been a bunch of fun. I've taken a bunch of things from our bunch of interviews from our Winners Find a Way show of CEOs, executives who are former athletes, as well as pro athletes, Olympians, interviewing them and getting those points extracted from all those lessons of sport into how they supercharge careers and things after in leadership. So I'm excited to bring that book to the world, speaking all over the world on it right now, already spoken 17 countries. And so I'm excited to keep the tour alive and keep moving. Like you guys see me on the show, I'm never in the same place twice, man. So, I'm looking forward to always joining you guys, and I'm thankful to be a part of this show. I love baseball. 108 Stitches with the Motor City Madmouth, always fabulous. Barber, man, he makes the whole show go. Love his comments. Deep thinker, always well thought. And so, and some of the other guys we have with George and some of the other team, it's just a bunch of fun every Monday night.
Yeah, by the way, just in case you know, Trent, Candy had your book in the right hand corner.
Yes, she did. Yeah, look at that. Way to go, Candy.
See, here's the deal, Mr. Clark. You're part of the family, brother. That's why it's sitting over on the right side. It is what it is. By the way, Fernando Vargas is setting the record straight that Pete Rose had a restaurant in the area. So, all right, Fernando, thanks for not making me scratch my head, pull my hair out. Then again, I had one of those cuts, which was a 2, which didn't leave a whole lot left. So I don't know anything about. Well, the barber ought to know what these cuts are, whether it's 2 for. I don't know. Whatever.
I'm gonna go to Fernando's restaurant. Does Fernando have a restaurant?
It's what?
Does Fernando Vargas have a restaurant?
Fernando might own Pete's old restaurant. Is that what the deal is, Fernando?
Yeah, Fernando actually was one of those guys that I knew earlier on in this situation who taught me a little bit about StreamYard, and he's taught me a lot of technical terms I didn't know about. And he does come on periodically to comment.
Nice.
Fernando being a bar. All right, Mark, go ahead. Let it out.
Hey, look, right underneath the barber, it'll tell you where you can find me at OSP with M&M or Original Sports Podcast. I'm on every podcast audio network. You can find us on YouTube. Our show goes off on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock. And we have a little spinoff from our show. One of my guys is doing a cage fighting stuff. He likes combat sports. So he's got a little group that's spinning off of the Original Sports Podcast. So I'm looking forward to those guys doing that as well. I'm excited for that. My own personal little tree is growing. and that's always a good thing. So, I'm excited for tomorrow night for my guys. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be on there, but they've got a guy coming on from the Steelers, and he's going to be talking about, this 3-1 team, how they fell apart yesterday, but, the direction they're headed with guys like Justin Fields, who looks like a reborn football player out there under this system and these coaches.
All right, well, just a little FYI about the barber. I met him on Twitter, and then we finally were able to get together. That we ended up going to Cooperstown the same weekend, and we ended up doing a show out there that could still be found on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Of course, I knew Mark was going to be a fixture coming on these shows. We certainly hit it off well. I know what he likes to do, and as a result, here we are. So the power of networking. With that said, Candy Ebling, take us home.
Okay. The South Florida Tribune published a book back in December called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by your host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle. There's also a link to it on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can also find a link to our merchandise store, because let's face it, we all need a South Florida Tribune baseball cap or sweatshirt. You name it, go out there and get it. Check out our website. We have a lot of content, great content, baseball, football, you name it. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcast. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesday and Thursday nights on Sports Exchange and Fire Up, respectively. You never know what we're going to be talking about. It could be just about anything. Our Twitter or X is @Tribune South. If you want to email us, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you'd like to sponsor a show or advertise with us, call Scott, 954-304-4941. I think I covered it all. Scott, one last thing. Go Brewers, go!
I knew I was going to get that. Come on, seriously, I knew I was going to get it. I mean, it is what it is. I just, right now, in my mind, I believe that you have to try to be objective on some of these shows. I really, really, really do. And, that's just how I was raised in this industry. But, hey, I knew. If you're a Milwaukee girl like she is, you're going for the Brewers. And they've been able to get to the tournament without Christian Yelich, who had back surgery as well. And don't worry, I've had that and probably 9 million other ones. Go ahead, Trent.
I don't want to yield here, Motor City, but I should ask, who do you got tonight, Lions or Seahawks, my man?
Oh, I'm definitely going with the Lions at home, at least. I have to go with the Lions at home.
The Barber?
Oh, I'm going with the Lions. I'm a Lions guy now. I love Campbell. I love Campbell. I love Hutchinson. I saw him play in college. Jahmyr Gibbs is the real deal. He's going to be a top 5 back. Their weaknesses, their quarterback, and he's even playing well. So,
Candy?
Lions, but I unfortunately I can see the game, so I know what the score is already. So that
thanks a lot, really. What about you, Trent?
I like the Lions at home. I think they got something to prove. Steelers, Seahawks coming in 4-0, formidable. That's good.
Okay, well, I'll have a chance to see it in a little bit. But meanwhile, I want to thank everybody else for joining us here on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Mark the Barber, as always, does a great job. Trent, I know I suspect I do a lot of great stuff. We do other shows together too, and Trent is A1 on every one of them, as you are to the Barber. It's a lot easier. It makes my job a lot easier when you have capable panelists that do what they do and know what to do. To me, it's just great to be around teammates that are excellent. With that said, I'll leave it on that note. So once again, thank you very much for joining us. 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. We'll do it again. And just to let everybody know, our new regular time will be 8 o'clock Eastern time. So there you go. So this is definitely the new norm. So glad you could join us tonight, and we'll see you next week. Good night, everybody.